Hi, Scott from Wessex Blades. I'd give you an impression of 10 items that I find very useful in the workshop making knives. Not any particular order, not really sort of tool based or machine based, but 10 things, so you know, not an abstract technique, but actual items that I find useful whilst I make knives. One of these. Now, the brand name, like Hoover vacuum cleaner, the brand name is a Dremel, but a rotary tool. I generally am only using one sort of bit that's in there, and that is a 1/8 shank carbide end mill. So it can plunge in that end into material, so I can scribe with it. I can score blades, handles in order to put a key on it prior to putting scales on. I can clean holes out with it, any holes that are slightly too, they got too much of a draft angle from the laser, so when the laser goes through it doesn't cut absolutely 90 degrees, they got a slight draft angle, a bit like a water jet. So I can square them off inside, clean them up, take out the decarburized areas, just nooks and crannies. A Dremel tool, you can put all sorts of bits in. So if you were finishing, you could do buffing, a little intricate little inner corners, little radii. You can do all sorts of things with them, and you can pick these up for, you know, a non-brand one for about 15-20 quid. The way that you get more performance out of it is by changing what is actually in the chuck. So I buy proper carbide 1/8 mil shank, 1/8 inch, and it goes to the end. It can bite all the way up, plus it's an end mill as well. So a Dremel tool dedicated to itself. I don't change, the chuck goes up and that's it. I got other Dremels with other strange little bits in, but the one with the 1/8 inch shank end mill, I'm using that all the time. Okay, now you've seen me grab, slap, and grab it and slap it again all the time. All right, it's my engineer square on a magnet. That the only time I'm using this is to check the 90 degrees when I'm redoing the belt, or I'm redoing the platen, or I'm redoing the work rest. So a decent chunky, get it from a car boot sale, check it's 90 degrees, or buy a new one and dedicate it just for doing that one task, and when it gets beaten up just get another one and put it somewhere like in a wooden block if that works. If you've got a shelf, I'm quite happy to go like that, because that's all that thing does. So this piece of steel, all that needs to check is that's 90 degrees. So you know, you can do measuring, marking, do all sorts of things with it, but for me, just having that every time I do this job, that thing is within reach, in easy to reach engineer square. Okay, coming at number 3, but no particular order, a piece of phenolic board. Now you may be able to get hold of this or something similar, Corian work surface. It's made as flat and as uniform as possible because of it's a work surface, okay, or it's a worktop for sinks and basins and things, or kitchen worktops. It's as uniform as possible, so it's very useful for either putting on a worktop, putting your blades on it, and then scribing your center line. But another reason that I need it quite a lot is when I'm using it on the work rest, I use it sort of like as a false work rest. So I put it up against that there and move it within 1 mil of the belt. So it's a little bit more accurate than moving the work rest. And once that's there, grab a G-clamp, that's up. And then I can, as if I was doing scales, I can go right up against that there, and I can run a piece of board or something at 90 degrees, so it goes in square every time. So I use it so many times. It's got 2 uses in general. It's something that doesn't scratch steel so much because it's like a hard plastic, so putting a blade on there and scribing your center line, it works like a surface plate, an engineering surface plate, but it won't scratch the steel, and you don't want to scratch the surface plate. But this is more sacrificial, and also for making a sort of false work rest and moving it right up against the belt. Okay, so you can get accurate grinding there with no risk of your workpiece diving down underneath, because you've closed the gap up, so there's very little space between the work rest and a belt, because you don't want big gaps. So I use that to close the gap and clamp it. So a piece of phenolic board, corian, something like that, put your work on. Very useful. Another thing, very useful, not that expensive either, welders magnets. If you were doing welding, you've got your opportunity to hold something if you're doing 90s or 45s. So if you're building another grinder or you're building a work rest, these things are less than a tenner, all right? But what I'm able to do is hold a blade up against things like that and work on the grinder without having my fingers too close to the belt. It gives me distance and a pretty secure hold. But what I found is they're good, but that one is much better. So take a look at that. It looks like a big power stapler, but I think it's got more power, plus it's just more ergonomic. You put the blade on there, you go on, you can put your hand underneath. It's just a little less awkward than I seem to put my hand like this on that one, finger through the hole, you know, to do this, whereas it just works better. Plus when I'm not using it, I can put it on my garage door and I can put a few finishing belts on it. So when I'm in a run and I'm going 36 or whatever, I could leave me 120 Trizact, maybe finishing belt just hooked on there, so I've got them all ready to go moving around. So a welder's magnet, but that new one that looks like a stapler is a lot better. A carbide scribe in a mount of some description, you can do center lines, plus if you wanted to do the profile of a blade for cutting out or stock removal, so if you either blued it or sharpied it, you would then put your template up and scribe the profile of your blade, how you're going to shape it, whatever. So a carbide, it's like a scriber, and it allows you to scribe through a coloured material like a Sharpie or a Dyken Blue. You can get these from M&P Custom Blades. Shout out to Mike. But one of them, use the damn thing all the time. I have a collection. Grinding jigs. Allows me to set the angle of the platen using a bonus extra digital inclinometer. This widget gidger, put your thing on there, set the thing like that, makes it 90 degrees, push the button, move it over 11 degrees, 12 degrees, 13 degrees, or whatever your bevel's going to be, and this thing tells you what it is. Lock it off, job done. Rest of the batch hasn't moved, love it. Bonus extra. But that's used in cooperation with a grinding jig. So it can be as simple as a piece of 90-degree angle iron. You could put a clamp on it. If you clamp the handle, don't clamp the blade because you'll scratch it. You can use little bolts like that to hold things on, and you can use the same point each time. So if you've got a hole in the handle, line up the hole with the handle so you're actually addressed, so the blade is not in any way different when you go from one side to the next side to the next side to the next side. So if you've got things like that, make sure you use it consistently along each blade as you're going. You can have ones which angle. I don't actually use the angle. I set them, lock them, have done. That's what changes the angle, because it's bigger. Okay, so varying amount of choice. These I do when I'm doing large blades, where the blade goes onto the belt horizontal. And this one I do it where the blade goes down ever so slightly down at an angle, because then it gives me a chance to put, as the blade comes up off the choil, the plunge lines at an angle. Oh, these tips I'm giving you, honestly. This one here keeps cooler longer because it's got a dirty grey heatsink on it, so when you plunge it in the water, that stays cool. Yeah, that's a beast. I like that one. All of these available from 7K Metalworks. and link below. But yeah, I use jigs a lot. I leave my freehand grinding when I'm doing scales like that. That's all free-handed. So I'm still using the techniques and all the rest of it, but I like the precision, repeatability. I haven't got to keep going up to I'm checking. I'm just getting on and grinding it. Less time lost checking. I leave the freehand stuff to handles. Anyway, grinder jig. Next item. This thing here. It's a drill press clamp. The bolt goes through the stage through one of the slots. Your big wing nut underneath, and allows you to repeatedly clamp similar sized pieces like that over and over again. If there's a slight difference in the workpiece, you lift it up, and like a pair of mole grips, the big nut at the back, you adjust it there to allow you to just change the angle. The thing is, it's going down, so it starts off further away, and that makes that looser, if that makes sense. Go like that, tighten it up. There it goes like that. That is no use, okay, unless this is absolutely 90 degrees to start with. So make sure underneath and everything, when you set up and get your drill press, that this is absolutely horizontal. Plus, whatever the exit material underneath also has to be something that is very, very even and a uniform thickness. Otherwise, all strange things will be going like that. As your workpiece goes along, that might move and shift. So the system of having that 90 degrees, whatever material you've got like that, is a machined piece of like MDF or pine or something, so it's consistently flat top and bottom, so there's got the even thickness. And then this thing, then it comes into play then. So a drill clamp like that, I use it all the time. Get them on the internet. I got a little one over there. So there's my drill press. Like that. Bit awkward because you ain't quite got the throw on the arm, but for that little drill press it's just right whenever I need to use that one over there. Okay, low voltage clip-on lamps. Range of different styles, goosenecks on them, so you can change the attitude of the light. Big chunky clips, so you can pick them up, put them to different places, and then you could just tweak the actual position of the light. Something like that over there. As soon as I grab hold of it, I can put it to the work rest and just put a spotlight on that, and I can put another one there, so I can grab another one, put that down. But you don't want to go out of your way to get something that's 240 volt to the actual light, okay? You need these that are low voltage, so they've taken a transformer of some description. All right, so what's going to the light is something like 24 volt or 12 volt or USB 1.5 volt, because where you're working across the floor, water, dust, dirt, sparks, all sorts of stuff, metal work rest because you're clamping it to it. You don't want 240 volt, or if you're in the States, 110 volt to you, okay? You want to have it where at your end, you want something like 5, 12, 20 volt. Okay, so low voltage, clip-on lights, very, very useful. Bonus extra. Tool tray, cutlery tray, anything like that, that you can put each person's build in a separate section. This is an IKEA cutlery tray, I think. You can buy them in plastic, you can buy them in wood, you could even make it yourself. Jack Law's got one, I think it's got 5 or 6 compartments. For me, 4 is plenty. It's a shame they don't make them long like that for 3, but you could always mess about with a piece of, if you could rip up a thing on a piece of ply or softwood on a table saw, you can make your own. You could do 3 long ones and 1 short one at an end, any way you want to do it. But it allows you to compartmentalize all your bits and bobs. If you had different pins, if you had different scales, different liners, everybody's gets their own little section, compartment. So tool tray, box, cutlery tray to put your different build bits in. Okay, number 10. You've had a couple of bonuses, so lucky oh you. Thanks for staying so long. a drill press vise of some description. This one here is from Sandy, so I had that from him. It's been served me well. But what I found was when I want to do ferro rods, that one task, and I wanted to have something that was tall and held a 60mm plus piece of hardwood, I needed something with jaws that were deeper. So eventually I went and invested in this one by Soba, S-O-B-A. Size of that. So you can see that because the jaws are deeper, a ferro rod will sit in there quite happily. Very nice. It also has a V in there, so if I wanted to hold something circular, as long as it spanned the hole, so ferro rod could go in there if it was round because of that V. That is a very nice piece of kit. So a drill press vise, that was nearly £60, but you can pick these up on the internet. 3-inch, you know, sort of 20 quid, something like that. So a drill press vise. Okay, Scott from Wessex Blades, thanks for hanging in there and waiting to the end. Not necessarily a top 10, but 10 items that I find very useful to make knives. A few bonuses as well, thanks to my Patreons. Their help allows me to free up some time away from production in order to put out little workshop tips and tricks ideas like this. If you're interested, there's a Patreon link underneath if you want to get the early access vids of this description that might help you along the way. But other things like this I'll be doing as I go, when the need makes me, or as the comments might roll. Comment below anything else that might tickle your fancy. Just got Wessex Blades out. Thanks guys at the Patreon.